Like, you can argue full body is the best split, but it's hard as hell, man. I did it for years.
It's so funny you brought up full body, and we could talk about that briefly because I'm still running full body, and I have been for like
Nice.
I think it's been 2 years now. And
Yeah.
when we last spoke, it even encouraged me more to go. Well, actually, technically, when we last spoke, I was doing like a hybrid. If you count overlap, it was technically full body, but
Right.
it was like torso, limbs, that kind of style.
Torso, limbs. Yeah.
Except I was doing a deadlift on the torso day, so it was like a full body,
Right.
deadlifts and calves were on the torso day, and then arms
It still
and
counts as full
delts.
body.
It still counts as full
It
body.
does it.
But
Like, I
now I'm
used to
like,
do rack pulls,
yeah,
and I would call that full body, even though I wasn't
yeah.
doing squats.
If you have a full body exercise in the workout, it's a full body
It's a
workout at
full.
that
There you
point.
go.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. It's also the
Um,
best excuse to skip legs conveniently.
yeah, interestingly, you say that. No, interesting you say that because full body, and this could be cool for the listeners. Like I'm in Amsterdam, so I'm on a bike a lot, and full body works
Oh,
beautifully
oh, it's the
because I'm
best for
not
that.
trying because I'm on a bike because I'm biking like everywhere all the time. Not having to just do 1 to 2 leg exercises max in a workout is
Hmm.
like that's like perfect versus what I used to do, which was like 5 or 6, right? So and now
And
it's like,
yeah,
no, that doesn't work for me anymore since I've been here.
I
So
think, well, look, I've said this many times. When I did full body twice a week, that was the best recovery I ever had because overlap is permanently reduced. You always get a perfect amount of recovery between sessions. You're still getting the optimal twice a week frequency. But now on the off days, you can do all the damn cardio you want, even if it's super intense. Just like yourself, I wasn't doing biking, but I once did running every day for 6 months straight. And full body is what allowed me to do that. I think with
yeah,
this current split, that would be quite difficult to do, because the
right.
fatigue would just be through the roof.
It would be it would influence like my progress is just going up because
Of
I'm
course.
not overly fatiguing my body. But it's interesting we're talking about, and this could be helpful, I think. Knowing what you know now, how would you maybe change things from how you used to do full body to optimize progress and minimize this additional fatigue that maybe we don't want to potentially even up the frequency? Because I've heard guys do full body like every other day. And I'm thinking to
Yeah.
myself, okay, that could be done, but
You got to know what
everything's
you're
got to be
doing.
on point. Yeah, you got to really
It's
know
got to
what
be
you're doing there.
really on point. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So let's
I
talk
mean,
about that.
I still think the twice a week full body is awesome because I
Okay.
do value 72 hours of recovery. I don't think that you can say the muscles recover in 48 hours, but maybe the joints don't. And I've tried over many years. I've tried everything, bro. Even reducing my volume, like lowering my proximity of failure. And like when it comes to presses, I can't recover in 48 hours. Maybe it's because I'm lifting so heavy on the bench, but my shoulders always feel like a little bit off, like they're not fully there. I can still get a good workout in, but I know for a fact that if I rest an extra day, I will be stronger. So that's why I like the 72 hours and ultimately why I settle on the twice a week full body, right? But I think on paper, 3 times a week is superior. If you do something like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or even if one of those workouts you rest an additional day, so like an asynchronous type setup, and that way it would be better auto regulated, right?
That's what I'm
And
doing right now. Not to cut you out, but it's literally some weeks it's 3 and then
that's it.
some weeks
You
it's
see,
2 because it's two
if you
days
take if you need the
between.
extra day, you take it, right?
Yeah,
If not, then
yeah.
forget about it. So
That's
that
it.
would be the solution if you don't want to do twice a week, right?
If you're not following a 7-day week and you're doing full body, you get the frequency in because you already hit your
That's
everything twice per week.
that's
And
it.
that's the
And
advantages
stress
of the full body. Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
full body is the most flexible split I can think of. It
Yeah.
really is. It's the time efficient split, straight up. And
Just straight
you're
up.
so in tune with your body. It's fantastic. There's a reason why I ran it for so many years.
That's wild.
Um,
And wow, and you were building, that's funny thing, but I feel like I'm in a similar spot maybe than you were 10 years ago. When you're building in the early stages, it's like it comes in handy because you're
well, look,
you're in the
it's
building stages of like business and stuff. It's like, okay, you
that.
can't be in
Yeah,
and you're in a
yeah,
public gym, you don't have the home setup. All right, maybe this is the way to go for the next little while. And you could still make
yeah.
gains, man. It's crazy.
Look, anyone who's busy should do full body, straight up. If you're a businessman or you know that there's going to be certain life priorities, like don't consider anything else.
Yeah, no,
But
I like that. I like that. That's good for
yeah,
people
yeah,
to hear, because there
for
could be
sure,
a
for
few guys
sure.
listening that are thinking that. I mean, a
Yeah.
majority are like super elite competitive natural bodybuilders or wannabe. So I get that maybe they're like thinking,
Well,
whoa,
look,
twice a week.
I'm
That's crazy. But you
you.
made gains, man. You made the best gains
Well,
you said
look,
doing that. So
I build like 90% of my physique doing that.
right on.
I
So
stopped I stopped doing it, and you see I ran it for so long that I remember when I stopped. It was December of 2019. And then I switched to an upper lower from 2020 till October of 2022. And that's when I started having fun with these various splits. But most
yeah,
of my journey was full body. And there was no reason for me to deviate from it. And now we actually have the science confirming that it is the split that reduces the weekly fatigue. And Leroy Colbert said this decades ago. The whole body recovers. It's the same nervous system. Well, maybe we should have listened to the old timers. They weren't stupid. There's a reason why they
no.
ran those splits. They
That's
could have
Steve
they could have done anything.
Reeves. Yeah, all
They
these
all
guys,
did
Steve
it.
Reeves, Leroy, Reg Park at one point was doing that, but
Yeah,
a George
George
Heiferman,
Eiferman, John
Heiferman. That's
Grimek,
it. John Grimek. Yeah, so there's
all
a
the
lot of the
greats did
old
it.
school, all the greats, man. And I like the auto regulation of like listen to your body. Are you experiencing DOMS? How's your recovery? Do you feel like you can go in and make progress? Then go in, right? If it's even if it's
Yeah,
1 day of rest. So
and going back to initial question, because you asked me what would I
yeah,
change within the full body itself. What I would tell you is, first of all, forget about the 3 sets, do everything 2 sets. That's an easy one right there. Okay. And also, believe it or not, I think there were too many exercises. If you're gonna do it 3 times a week, I don't think you need to hit all the movement patterns. If you do, then you might even have to reduce it to 1 set. Because the
okay,
whole point of full body, see, we've had it wrong all along. It was the idea that you're not only getting your frequency in, but you're also having higher volume because you're getting your higher quality work sets, and by the end of the week you end up with the same amount of sets as a split, but now you got the frequency as well, right? The thing is, because there's less fatigue, you can actually drop your volume further, which means you come in with better recovery at a higher frequency, and in essence that is more stimulating than if you did more sets. You don't need to do as much as you think, and actually Brooks Kubik, who was the author of Dinosaur Training, he figured this out in the 90s. He called this the abbreviated routine, that you don't just throw everything at your body in one session. So you're kind of approaching it with a split mindset, but it's still full body. So, like, you don't have to do squats and deadlifts every full body workout. One could be squat only, and literally just come in, do 2 sets of squats. Then 48 hours later, come in, do 2 sets of RDLs. Then 48 hours again, come in, do 2 sets of front squats or something, right? So you can split it
right.
up like that, and your volume will be less than if you ran a split, but the sets will be that much better, and your recovery will be so adequate because your fatigue is low for those muscles, and there's no systemic fatigue, right? That your progress is going to be through the roof. So that would be the way to do it. You don't need to do vertical push pull and then horizontal push pull and then an isolation, like 1 to 2 isolations per month. Like full body is not about combining everything into
Yeah.
like one day. It's about still splitting it, but you're still hitting the whole body the same, like what you said before, you know?
Yeah. Well, no, it's good that you brought that up. First things first, shout out to Ian Duckett, who we had on the show. He mentioned Brooks Kubik, and I had
Oh
looked
yeah,
into the dinosaur
nice.
training. Yeah, so shout out. And those listening should know who Ian is because we
I
had him
know.
on multiple times. Yeah. But also, what you just mentioned, yeah, like day one might be a pull down, and then day two, full body might be a row. There you go. Like
Exactly.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to like for people to get but you know what's interesting? What I do like about full body is you can play with it and see what exercises you that take you a bit longer to recover from and which ones maybe don't take.
Yeah.
If you can isolate that, you can kind of program it in a way like if you know your body and you know
If you're
what
able to do more, great. But if you notice that by adding in that extra movement, the recovery takes
right.
a hit, then don't bother. Like I know, like if I'm doing full body 3 times a week, I have to do one press only.
Right. That's a
It is.
demanding exercise, like a bench. You're talking about like a heavy bench.
Yeah. Like if I
Yeah.
do like if I do a max effort single and then 3 sets of heavy bench and then I do some overhead pressing right after, I'm not
Nah,
recovered by 40. I need 72. But if I only do bench, then it's actually doable.
yeah.
Especially if I follow up the bench with like a shortened position movement. You
That's
know what
what
I'm
I was
saying?
just gonna say. Yep. For one of the days, I just hit leg press. Like that's it.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I do for legs. But then on the other full body day, I'll do shortened work, and it could be like hip flexion, hip extension, calf raise, and that's fine because it's
Yeah.
so much easier to recover from that than the leg press, which hammers me 2 sets to failure or really close. Even if it's just 1 rep in reserve, I'm toast, man. Like I
There you
know
go.
I get a little bit of DOMS too, and it's like so
Yeah.
everybody's
Well,
different, right? Too also with the DOMS thing because you said you don't really experience too much DOMS, so.
it's gone down over the years. Like I don't really get it much. And
Yeah.
it's mostly if you introduce a novel exercise. But
Yeah.
when you train like me, where you're kind of doing everything, it's kind of unlikely. I would
Yeah.
say there's not too many movements that give me DOMs, except for maybe like a heavy deadlift variation
Mm.
of some kind. The absolute load needs to be through the roof. And in general, that's been the X factor in my recovery. Whenever I'm lifting like really heavy, but not just according to a rep range, because we can lift heavy on everything. We can exclusively stick to the 5 to 8 zone, right? But it's more so like when you got a lot of plates on the bar, the absolute load is through the roof. Your spine is being crushed. You're lifting like 3 times your body weight or whatever. Like the multiplier is just absurd, right? That independently affects your recovery, in my sincere opinion. And I have seen
Yeah.
that among the best naturals. So we talked about it last time, but with deadlifts, whenever I would pull over 500, that would hurt my recovery more than if I did good mornings would have to wait, even though the muscles that control hip extension were getting the same stimulus. But
Yeah.
with the deadlift, you're also taxing the upper back. There's more going on there, right? But again, it's
It,
because of the load. If I was only deadlifting 250, I would never experience those problems. So this
Yeah.
is what people miss. And I'm seeing that now with the bench. If every workout I'm coming in hitting 3 plates for reps, I'm sorry, that's not the same as a guy doing 2 plates. It's not. I don't care what
Mhm.
anybody tells me. And that's why studies that they showcase beginners, or not beginners, but people who have a 225 1 rep max, they'll never understand.
Yeah, I
They
know.
just won't. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Like when you start to get into these types of lifts, deadlifts, heavy squatting, even heavy benching, you better know how to program because that can get tricky real fast if you're very strong. And usually, if you're very strong, you know how to program, so it's not an
of
issue.
course,
But
you've reached that
yeah,
point. Yeah.
you've reached that
Yeah.
point because nobody's getting that strong and doesn't know how to program, right? Obviously, I've spoken to many elite level natural
Sure.
bodybuilders, top, the best in the world. And there's a few common themes there, like the guys who are training with a higher frequency and who are the strongest. And I'm talking high frequency. What I mean high frequency, I mean they're in the gym like 5 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
They're usually the ones that are talking about the aches and the pains. Yeah, they're taking a risk, of course. They're putting their body on the line because they want to be the best at what they're doing, right? But at the same time,
Mm,
I'm wondering if it's like, with all the information we have and all the education that we have, some guys, they do things for preference and they're stuck in their ways as well. But is it necessary to do that much? Could they have got, this is a whole debate, right? With Ronnie Coleman,
yeah,
for
of
example, could you have
course.
gotten to that level with maybe a different approach that maybe wasn't as risky on the body or maybe had you feeling a little bit better in
Yeah.
life?
Well, if they weren't stuck in their ways and they actually try something that is a bit more forgiving, like they give themselves more rest days, they would find out within a year. And that's all it takes, right? But if they're constantly
True.
competing, maybe they're afraid of looking worse or something. But I've never had that fear. Like I don't care. I'm gonna try everything until I find the system that maximize, because I want to be in this game long term. You don't want to kill yourself early on, right? So I can't relate to that mindset. And luckily I've had mentors like Matt Winning, who's been really big about this from day one. Like in the powerlifting scene, many of them follow like ultra specific programs where they're benching 4 or 5 days a week. And it works absolutely. You get to the elite level much faster time, and you're very good at those movements. But you might have so many weaknesses, and you're coming in session to session feeling banged up. You got to wrap up real tight, and it's like your career might not last long. By 25 years old, you could be out, right? And that's generally what we see in a lot of the younger crowd. They start lifting at 17, 18, 25, they're at the peak of their strength, and then they get a career-ending injury, and that's the end of it, right? And I don't want
Wow.
that. I just want to be getting better with age, like what we see with guys like Jeff Alberts, right? And that
Right.
requires a consideration towards a fatigue management and frequency and what exercise you pick and all the things that we talked about today. And I think for most people, they probably don't need to train 5 days a week. Not you could of course run that in a way that does maximize recovery. And I think Jeff Willett with
Right. The max OT.
Max OT, that was a good way
Right
of doing
on.
it. I'll say
Yes.
it
Yes.
straight up. He was spot on about a lot of things with the
Yeah.
6 to 8 sets per muscle, not exceeding that. So it's funny how a lot of natural bodybuilders are going back to that 10 years later and they don't even know that Jeff did it first. So
Yeah.
it's like,
Skip Lacour as well was doing that at that time. You know who Skip Lacour is, right?
I think so.
He's another bodybuilder who was promoting max OT at the time. But yeah, continue.
If you want to train 5 days a week, I would employ more so that kind of approach.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people would be fine with 4 days a week or even 3 days a week. And I know Alberto Nunez did it last year. And
Mhm.
he thought he was going to be a 3 day a weeker forever. That's how
Yeah.
good he felt. There's a lot of ways to program, but 3 to 4 is generally that sweet spot.
But what's very interesting to me is that, and man, I give you credit because like, I'm like, oh, this 2 times a week thing, that seems, that's enticing. I'm willing to try it given the circumstances. And then I'm like, I feel amazing. Progress is
Yeah.
So you've inspired that for sure, especially after hearing a lot of the bodybuilders on the show as well. A lot of them are training for three. I've heard three. A lot of these elite guys also do three. There's not very many talking about twice a week, right?
It's a very
Yeah.
interesting one. You just got to think about it logically, man. If you're hitting your muscles twice a week, which is a fact, and that's considered the optimal frequency, maybe 3 times is slightly better, but let's just say 2 is your standard, and you are getting that. And you get 72 hours of recovery, meaning you can play around more with different exercises and higher intensities and whatever. It's like that's a winning combination. And you have no overlap. The whole nervous system recovers together. Like,
But
why would it
that's
not
it.
work?
That was always a thing. Like I would think about. I'm like, well, I just train my upper body, but like I'm drained, even though it's
You
lower
are.
body day, to an
Yeah.
extent, and that's okay. Like if you're
Yeah,
going,
you
you're
can
going to
still do it.
compete. You can still
Yeah.
do it for sure. You just got to accept that there's going to be fatigue. Like I remember I spoke
Yeah.
with AJ Morris on the podcast. He's like, dude, you're an athlete. There's going to be fatigue. Like there's no way to completely eliminate fatigue. It's like where's the overload? Where's the adaptation? Like
Yeah.
how are you gonna? You can't just completely eliminate fatigue.
No,
But if we can
sometimes you got to suck
reduce
it up.
You got to suck it up sometimes, right? So yeah, there's of course that variable as well, but you got to know what season you're in, especially of your life as well, right?
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah, yeah, I love that, bro. I feel like, did we miss anything
I
though?
love
Like
that
I
you're on
feel,
board with this too. It's wonderful to
well,
see.
yeah, that's why I got excited. So my bad if I was cutting you off a little bit there, but I was
No,
getting
no, no
pumped up
worries.
because with this conversation, because it's not talked about enough. That's it right there. It's not talked about enough,
Definitely.
and certainly not on this podcast.